Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of the Behind the Beacon podcast. I'm your host, Seth Orensky. Before our first interview, I want to remind all of our student athletes that all medical paperwork is due by Thursday, November 5th. If you don't fill out and submit your paperwork, you can't participate in virtual or on-campus workouts with athletic performance coach Jeff Ebbs. If you have any questions, please contact Alexa Capione. Freshmen, your final True Beacons event is this Wednesday, November 4th at 7 p.m. Academic advisor Mary Beth Menine will give an overview for picking classes for the spring 2021 semester. You need to attend this meeting and meet with Mary Beth after the event to get your advising hold lifted. Our first guest this week is men's basketball alum Quadry Allen. Quadri was a member of the men's basketball team from 2011 to 2014 and then returned to the squad for his senior year in 2015. As a senior, he led the Beacons in points and minutes per game and started in all 25 contests. In his interview, Quadri and I talk about his mental health and identity struggle as he balanced competing at a high level while struggling with being a closeted gay man. Quadri talks about how he was able to navigate those issues and how finding sports leagues catered to gay men in Boston have helped create a supportive community for him after college. I'm joined by men's basketball alum Quadry Allen. Quadri, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Seth?
I'm doing great. Quadri, I want to start with your high school season in Louisiana and then your freshman year at UMass Boston. How did you kind of have to split being a basketball player and a very good one and kind of discovering your sexuality and what that meant as a young man?
It was very hard for me, especially in high school, being in a small town where everyone knew everyone and being a basketball captain in my school where you were expected to win. I had to kind of drown myself in basketball, like just practice, go to games. And I struggled a lot with my sexuality, which made it very hard for me to kind of accept who I was as a senior in high school. I think leaving Louisiana and coming to Boston helped me a lot because I was able to get away from what I was used to. I was able to get away from my comfort zone of people and kind of branch out and kind of start figuring things out on my own.
You had a strong freshman season. You played in a lot of games. Were the Little East Conference Rookie of the Week. And then your sophomore season and your junior season, things didn't quite work out as well. You didn't see as much time. And part of that, which a lot of people wouldn't have known just from the box score, was you kind of trying to struggle through figuring out your sexuality while also being a basketball player at the college level. What was that like, especially in your head where you were dealing with some stuff that maybe your coaches and your teammates had no idea what was going on with you?
It was very tough. I kind of felt like I was alone and I didn't really have anybody I could talk to about this. I was so far away from my family and I just didn't really know what to do. So as far as games went, I felt like I was always prepared, but I felt like mentally I was not there. My head was somewhere else. I was always so nervous about someone finding out I was gay and then my teammates not accepting me or me not even being able to just go in the locker room and play basketball again. And basketball has been such a huge part of my life. And I don't really know what I would have done if I wasn't able to compete. So my sophomore year was a really, really hard year for me because I just couldn't find a balance. I was able to kind of find a balance my freshman year, but sophomore year, I just couldn't find my footing in balancing being a college basketball player and balancing trying to figure out my sexuality.
Before what would have been your senior year, that 2014-15 season, a number of things happened both with you and your family that caused you not to play in 2014-15. What was going on at that point, and how did it in the end kind of help you with kind of discovering who you were or moving along in that path?
It was a very hard year for me. I had two really close deaths to me in the family. My grandfather was dealing with a few health issues. And I just felt like basketball wasn't at the top of my list that year. I felt like I needed to take a year off to kind of make sure my family was okay and try to balance the basketball and the struggles of me being gay. So taking that year off and focusing on my family, focusing on my mental health, which was not where it should have been at the end of my sophomore year, made me realize that I was ready to come back and take back like what had been a huge part of my life, which was basketball.
During that season, did you follow the team? Did you watch some of the games? Kind of how did you keep in touch with the basketball, or was basketball not something that the UMass Boston team wasn't something you were too focused on?
I was always watching the games. I would even go to some games. All of my teammates that I had been playing with were very confused as to why I wasn't playing, but of course I wasn't able to tell them. But I was able to go to the games, talk to them all the time, see a few practices. I was still in contact with Coach Charlie Titus, which helped me out a lot. And they never made me feel like I wasn't a part of the team, which was a tremendous help for me. I would see them at the Clark Center. We would hang out after basketball games. We would hang out. And I think that's what helped me out a lot. It just kept me grounded and balanced, that I knew that even though they didn't know exactly what I was going through, they were able to help me out by just talking to me or just listening to me.
How difficult is it to have a part of yourself that you know the truth about, but you can't tell other people who want to be there for you, but you just don't feel comfortable talking about that truth at that point?
It's very difficult, because you wake up every morning and, you kind of just have to look at yourself and say, hey, like, this is who I am. But, I don't think I'm able to admit that to myself, or I'm able to admit that to the world. So you kind of go by day and just, I don't know, you kind of just get through it. I tried to act like everything was normal. I would hang out, with my close group of friends and, just sit there, have a good time. But in the end, it just was really, really hard on my mental health. I just think people who were like me, who were struggling with their sexuality, especially when you're playing a college sport, it's really hard to just say, hey, I'm gay, and not have anyone think anything about it, because there's always going to be questions. There's always going to be some questions that you may not be ready to answer. So I kind of just went by day and just tried to get through it the best way I can. And a lot of days were a lot harder than others.
Before you came back to the team for your senior season, for that 2015-16 year, you started to tell a couple people within your inner circle. How much did that help you lift a little bit of those mental health issues and kind of have more people be in on that secret and help you feel more comfortable with who you were?
It helped me out a lot. I can't even describe the feeling that I felt when I was able to tell my very close, tight-knit of friends about my sexuality, and just their reactions, to say, like, we still love you as a brother. You're always going to be cute to us. Like, it doesn't make any difference if you're gay or not. Like, we look at you the same. That helped me so much. And I did have a few friends who said those things to me, but their actions changed. But my very, very close group of friends who I made here in Boston, their actions never changed. We hung out all the time still. Nothing was weird, nothing was awkward. And it was just like I was me, I was Quadri. And that helped me out so much. And that played a ginormous decision into me going back to play my senior year.
What was that senior year like? You started every game, you led the team in minutes, you led the team in points. It seemed like there was a different Quadry Allen, even to someone like me who broadcasted your games. I didn't know what you'd gone through, but you just seemed to be having fun out on the court again.
I felt like I was having fun. It kind of brought me back into those days when I was a kid traveling to play AAU tournaments. Kind of brought me back to my senior year of high school. I just felt free. I felt like I wasn't really, even though I wasn't completely out to everyone, I felt like I wasn't hiding everything. I felt like the people who needed to know in my life right then and there knew, and they supported me every single day. If it was a phone call, if it was a text, coming to my games, just sending me little notes throughout the day, it kind of lifted me up, and it made me realize that even though I am gay and my teammates don't know, like, I am able to give this game all that I have and leave everything out on the floor, because this is going to be the last year I'm able to wear this Beacon uniform. And I'm so glad that I was able to tell them, and it helped me a lot. It like freed my spirit.
In 2018, you fully came out to the world at large. It wasn't something that you were fully ready to do. Someone else outed you. How big were sports to kind of help you fully move into that realm, but also feel comfortable with who you were after getting outed by someone else rather than getting to make that announcement yourself?
Sports helped me out a lot. It was a time after that happened, I didn't leave my place for weeks. I was really struggling with how I was going to be seen by the world. I think I was so focused on what other people thought about me, especially from back where I'm from, besides how before my happiness. And when I found the gay basketball league in Boston, and I met so many amazing people who were so comfortable with themselves and just so free, and they were able to compete and play basketball, which was something I always wanted to do. It helped me out so much. It just made me feel like I belong. I felt the world, so to speak, in Boston. Like, and still to this day, like, I'm good friends, and I'm so thankful for the gay basketball league in Boston, because it's helped me transition into being the true Quadri.
You not only play in the Boston Gay Basketball League, you also play with the Beantown Softball League, and you've always been an athlete. You were a tremendous baseball and basketball player in high school, great basketball player in college. What does it mean to be in an environment where everyone's accepting who you are in all facets, but also to be able to continue to compete? Because that has always been a big part of who Quadry Allen was growing up into college and now as a young adult.
It's absolutely amazing. And the thing I love about softball is there's so many different age groups of guys, and even girls. To say my team, it's the Boston Rebels. I'm 27 years old, and I think our pitcher may be 63, and he's still a hockey goalie. So it's so amazing to be able to be around people who understand you and who kind of get you, but also at the same time who still have love for the sport of softball, the sport of basketball, and still compete at a high level. So I think that's absolutely amazing. A lot of my teammates, especially in softball, are such an inspiration to me, that they just keep going year by year as they get older and still able to play the game at a high level. So I'm very grateful to find both of those leagues.
Before finding out about those leagues, could you ever imagined a community like that? I don't think a lot of people know that there are necessarily gay catered leagues.
I know a lot of people that I've met, especially around my age, have played college sports and they weren't out. So just like me, they kind of didn't know what they were going to do next. And after I finished playing basketball at UMass, I was able to still playing some leagues in Boston, but it wasn't the same for me. I just felt like I wanted to be around a community of people who were like me. So when I was able to discover the gay basketball league, I was a little bit nervous because, as I said, at the time I was not out, but I kind of needed to move in that direction of kind of figuring out a little bit more about myself and kind of being around people who were like me. So the leagues, they're amazing.
Quadri, you're still very young, but I imagine that you've been an inspiration for a lot of people, both in your community back home and maybe even some people here in Boston who are still working on figuring out their sexuality. What has that experience been like, where other people maybe have been reaching out to you for advice or just reaching out to you, thanking you for your story and kind of what you've been through has helped them through their own process?
It's been absolutely humbling to me. There's been times where I've cried because of the the love and the joy that people have shown me to reach out. And a lot of people, especially here in Boston, and some athletes and some people from back home who just kind of don't know where to go next, or what's the next step, or how do I figure this out or that out. And my biggest advice to them is just take your time. There's no right time to come out. There's no right way to say it. Like I always say, you need to find your closest group of friends and kind of tell one person at a time, and then tell a second person. And as you become telling a few more people, you kind of know that you have some support. The biggest thing about being closeted is having some support, having some friends that you can lean on when you feel like you can't count on yourself in those days. So I'm glad that I've had people reach out to me, and I'm able to mentor them and kind of help them on their way of becoming their true self as well.
Quadri, it was really great hearing more about your story and seeing what you overcame. To someone who knew you in college but didn't know what you were going through, I had no idea, and I'm glad that you were able to overcome it the way you were and to come out the other side as such a great individual. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Seth.
That was my interview with Quadry Allen. Quadry is extremely active and competitive in the Boston Gay Basketball League and the Beantown Softball League, including serving as the Director of Sponsorship for the Boston Gay Basketball League. Before we get to our next interview, I'd like to dig a little deeper on one of the On This Date posts from this past week. On October 28, 2014, women's soccer senior Krista Laden scored her 100th career goal in a 3-1 win over Bridgewater State University. She became the first player in program history to reach 100 career goals and the 30th woman in NCAA history. Laden still stands as one of the top statistical players in NCAA Division III history. She ranks tied for 11th in NCAA Division III women's soccer history in goals with 105 and tied for 17th with 241 points. She also owns the Beacons program records for career assist and game-winning goals, and helped the Beacons win the program's first 3 Little East Conference regular season titles and their first ever LEC tournament title. Now let's turn to our second guest. Men's basketball alum Charles Yuan has accomplished a lot since wrapping up his playing career in 2006. The Liberian native started 3 businesses in Boston before visiting Liberia for the first time in his life in 2012. Since that first visit, Yuan has followed in the footsteps of his parents in giving back to the people of Liberia. I talked to Charles about the significance of Liberia to him growing up, why he sees so much potential in the country, and his growing chocolate business. I'm joined by men's basketball alum Charles Yuan. Charles, how are you doing?
I'm doing well today. How's everything, Seth?
It's tremendous. Charles, you have such a unique story. Just from birth, you lived in 4 different countries before moving to Boston at the age of 5. But to get even half of your story into these 15 minutes, I want to skip ahead to college. Okay. And your family's originally from Liberia, but it wasn't a place that you had really spent any time or really explored. No. And then your dad had a conversation with men's basketball coach Charlie Titus, and that kind of changed your vision on what Liberia could be in your future. Can you talk about how that conversation kind of changed how you viewed Liberia and potentially your future?
The way that conversation went to me, the thing that stuck out to me was pretty much how both of them were just geared to helping. You know, these are 2 men who shape a lot of my opinions and my thoughts. And they're not having a conversation about basketball at all. They're not having a conversation about anything that was going on currently in Boston. But they had a brief conversation on their ways that they help and the things that they do, you know, and I guess some sort of promise that they saw in me. I really don't understand much after that part. But I know it really impacted me. That 2 people who I'd looked at as successful, you know, as strong Black men in society that didn't let their stature or their color or anything like that, you know, stop them from doing what they were doing. And here they're talking about helping other people. I'm like, yo, who helped you guys? You know? So, yeah, it totally changed my focus towards, you know, being able, if I can help somebody else, then I'm successful.
With that, shortly after that conversation, your dad and your mother, who played a significant part in kind of changing the face of what politics and governing looks like in the country of Liberia, moved away. They went back to Liberia. You were back in Boston. What did a move like that do for kind of your focus on the country?
With them getting up and leave, what it looked like to me was just like a whole lot of uncertainty. I didn't know what was going forward. I just knew that me and my brother needed to finish school. And we needed to work. We needed to keep a roof over our heads. And, you know, one way or another, I was just determined for all of those things to happen. What ended up going wrong was just things that we couldn't foresee when it came to immigration and different just societal factors that you know, it's hard to gauge and impress upon. But beyond all of that, man, we were just strong. We were ready. We understood the importance that they placed on the country. I have 4 brothers, 6 sisters, you know, it's a lot of us. But throughout all of that, I've always seen that, like, okay, country was important. You know, country was more important than the individual. And in that, you know, it was just inspirational, seeing the strength, the will that they mustered up to just get up and go. I wasn't deterred or taken back by the decision at all. I was more inspired by it than anything.
So you finished school in 2006 and didn't get a chance to go to Liberia until 2012. What did you use those next 6 years to do? Because you didn't start one company, you started several companies and showed that you really are a man of all trades.
Yeah. Over those next 6 years, it was grueling, really. I started, in fact, from 06 to about that time where I left, I was selling cars. I sold, I did telemarketing. From there, I had to start my own business. I started a moving company. Then we moved on to entertainment, where we built a photography studio and started a modeling agency, and we started producing videos for artists, for musicians. Just trying to get it, however, you know. And in that time, I did security. I did overnight security in the meanwhile. So my nights I was working, and my daytime I was chasing a dream.
So you're doing all of these different things. You're building yourself up, and then you finally have a chance to go to Liberia. How did that change your perspective? How did that change kind of your life course, getting to go back and see a country that your family has had such a big impact on?
A lot of people talk about freedom. You know, they talk about being free and being able to live how they want to. I went there and I saw a country that for years had been chained up. You know, I saw people who were lack of opportunities, I saw people who didn't even realize how much a small opportunity could change the course of your life. You know, they were so desperate, they were so destitute that for them an opportunity was just being able to have like a cup of rice and things like that. And, you know, while I'm there, I start to actually see my father's impact. I start to actually see the things that made the difference for people. When I actually saw that, before actually seeing Liberia, it was just a place. It was a place that I knew I was drawn to. And when I get there, I was going to have a lot of fun, and I was going to see family that I didn't get to see. After I actually saw it, it turned into not so much so a project. It turned more into, I don't know, just like this new will was sparked up after I saw it. When I actually saw Liberia, it was like, okay, I can actually make a change here. It's not a place where somebody says something and you know, you're able to just drift away. You know, if I say something, I can actually watch it change. And that was big to me. It was huge. My second time there, I saw people my age building palaces for themselves. You know, not a home or a house or like a hut or something like that, what you would imagine what's in Africa. I'm seeing men 25, 30, 35 building palaces for themselves, you know, and being able to feed towns and being able to help and educate droves and droves of children. It was incredible to me, you know. It was amazing. And I just wanted to be able to do something like that for myself one day.
When you went that first time, especially as an entrepreneur who had already started several companies, what did you see in terms of the landscape of Liberia, in terms of the opportunities, but also the mainstays you would see in America that were missing in terms of essential things that Liberians didn't have access to?
What I saw that was the difference was access. You know, there's a quote that stands out to me everywhere I go, man. It's talent is spread about evenly, opportunity isn't. And when I walk around Liberia, I see children who know more about math than I did when I was 10. You know, I see 5-year-olds that know more about math when I was 10. I see preteens who are faster than guys I grew up with. You know, I see young men who can jump and run higher, you know, jump higher and run faster than major athletes I grew up around. You know, I saw so much talent and promise around. I saw women who can cook and can sew and can, you know, just create all these beautiful things, whether it be artwork and engravings. You know, I saw so many different things that easily can be taken for granted here in the States, or that people get paid a lot to do here in the States. And I saw people doing it at a high level on the other side, and they were living in dire straits, you know, just living in poverty. For me, that was like, wow, if I'm able to show somebody an opportunity, you know, if I'm able to see an opportunity here for myself, you know, like I'm able to use it. I'm able to use it as at a measure that they're not seeing yet, you know. So that was the big difference for me.
A lot of the things that you've created here in Boston are entertainment based. A magazine, a modeling studio, a recording studio. But in Liberia, the company or the line of work you've gone into is farming. Why cocoa? What went into that, especially from someone, I don't think you have an agricultural background. Why did you decide cocoa and in particular chocolate?
My family, my father, during his 30s and 40s, he amassed a considerable amount of land. And I was able, with my new opportunity, with this new country that I saw, I didn't know anything about land. You know, and one day I'm having a conversation with my father about land, and you know, he's thinking about building like a house somewhere or like a rental property. I'm like, oh, how much land is an acre? You know, and showed me an acre, and I said, wow, that's a lot of land. And one way or another, I was able to carve out about 200 acres for myself. And in that 200 acres, I could have built on it. I could have put palm trees on it. You know, I could have gone into plantain production. I decided to go into cocoa because cocoa is going to be around forever. Chocolate is chocolate. You know, nobody can really say no to chocolate. And I saw an opportunity. I have a lot of family members on my mother's side that are into cocoa. My father made his first fortune actually delivering cocoa from the countryside to the port. So both sides of my family have like a, you know, kind of like a hanging balance with cocoa, but they never really tied together. And I was that conduit. I was able to see both sides, and I addressed both sides of my family. We spoke about it. I think at the time Nestle was pulling out of Africa due to some other, you know, concerns, societal concerns and environmental concerns that they weren't holding up to. And, you know, we saw what could be a vacuum, and we invested in it. When I say we, I say me, my mother, my father loosely. But eventually he got behind it, and now it's a thing, you know. Charlie's Chocolates is a thing, and we're just trying to grow it into something that's consistent and large and sustainable.
What have you learned from Charlie's Chocolates in terms of the cocoa business? Have there been some major obstacles you guys have had to overcome, or what do you see as the future of Charlie's Chocolates?
Biggest obstacles I had to overcome was distance. You know, in 2016, I made a decision to move to Liberia full time. Yeah, I made a decision to move to Liberia full time in 2016. The trips that I was taking back and forth, it was too far and few in between. the land, the distance of my land from the city. It was just too many variables that were just left hanging. People rob my products, people burn parts of my land, people don't stick to contracts, people understand contracts differently and do their own thing. There's so many different just business obstacles, things that I already factored in. It was just pretty much collateral damage. After getting past those things, after getting past roads, nature is crazy. Liberia is the second wettest country in the world. Our rainy season is incredible. Our roads turn to just mudslides. Our roads turn to just streams. All these things are obstacles, but I had to go there and be on the ground to make sure that my investment was going correctly, that I was actually changing the culture of the way that cocoa's farmed, at least with me, with our land, with our people, with people in my region. The way that I farm, my method of farming, that I've spent, probably the last 5 years developing is more hands-on in a sense, but it's more tedious, but it works.
Charles, before we finish, because you do have such an incredible story in terms of some of the companies you created, I do want to ask you at least one question about basketball, because you were at UMass Boston at a pivotal time. You guys won the first ever Little East Conference tournament title your senior year. I want to ask, what was that moment like?
That moment was incredible. Personally, for me, that moment solidified a lot of different things in my life. It solidified, it affirmed, there was an affirmation to the fact that, like, when I want to do something, I do it and I can get it done. And I don't just get it done at a low level. I'm able to perform at a high level in all things. The championship, the Little East Championship, was an affirmation of that. My sophomore year, I had my transfer papers in hand. My sophomore and junior year, I had transfer papers in hand to go somewhere else. But I loved my teammates. Like, to this day, I love my teammates. And I knew that we had something there. We were last place the year before. I just knew we had something there. When we got it, I was just happy. I was excited, but we were able to stay in the moment and enjoy it in the best possible way because we imagined it for years prior to. Even now with my chocolate, I imagine giving small boutique chocolates, selling small boutique chocolates around the world, and also being able to sell large quantities of chocolate liqueur around the world by the ton. Those are my two aspirations when it comes to chocolate, and it stems from being a winner as a kid. It stems from my wins before UMass.
Charles, it was great getting to tell just a bit of your story, because there's a lot more to talk about. And honestly, I feel like we could go for hours, but I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you giving some insight into what's going on and giving a lot of our viewers some insight into what it's really like in Liberia.
Yeah, thanks a bunch, Seth. This is really cool, man. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on your platform and, just give a little bit of my story.
That was my interview with men's basketball alum Charles Yuan. That's all for episode 8 of the Behind the Beacon podcast. Make sure to tune in next week.